Okay, question 4. So question 4, we're starting with this here. Okay, so this means equivalent to, so this algebra is supposed to be exactly the same as this. So we've got to find a and b. In other words, we've got to put this into that form, which is called completing the square. You think about your x squared minus your 2x, and of course that's going to be a squaredy bracket. So you can have an x here, you can have a number here with a squared on it, don't forget the squared. You're then going to have something that comes after that, and you're going to have, it's always a minus something, and then you're going to have plus 3 after that, and you're going to then get x in a squaredy bracket with plus or minus something after it, and it says find a and b, so don't forget to say a equals and b equals, and you've got your first couple of marks. Then we've got to sketch this graph, indicating, it says, the coordinates of any intersections with the coordinate axes. So we want x-intercepts and y-intercepts. However, if we've put it into completed square form, okay, don't ignore that. Okay, notice the link. This y equals is exactly the thing I've put in completed square form. So I know that y equals my answer to a. And from that, once you put it in completed square form, you know what the vertex is. Now, the question doesn't ask you to show the vertex of the graph, but if you work out what the vertex is, then you'll be able to show the graph in the correct position. The other things that you need to do when you're sketching a graph, okay, even before you get onto any intersections, then you can think about the shape of it. And the shape of a quadratic graph is always the same, though sometimes it's upside down, but if you look at this term here, you get to decide which way up it is. So even before you work out the intersections with the axes, if there are any, then decide which way up it is, decide where the vertex is, because one of these 3 marks is going to be for showing a graph the right way up with the vertex in the correct section of the graph. Okay, and you don't get any of these 3 marks if you don't draw a graph. So getting a graph in the right position is a very good thing to do. Now, intersections with the coordinate axes, there are 2 kinds. Okay, let's do this down here. So for the y-intercept, as you know in your notes, you need x to equal 0. So you substitute x equals 0 into this expression. You get a y value that goes with 0, and so you get the coordinates of the y-intercept. And then for x-intercepts, that's when y equals 0. So y is this whole thing here. So you need a whole quadratic expression equals to 0, okay? And the x values, okay, from that will be your x-intercept, which would be quite a lot of work. But if you've done the sketch accurately, then maybe you can save yourself a bit of work, okay? Or maybe you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. If you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about, maybe you want to look ahead at part C, because the discriminant, this word that we're going to underline here, it says it relates to your sketch in part B. So if you're having trouble with the sketch in part B, if you haven't succeeded in finding any x-intercepts, okay, then you might want to have a look at the discriminant. So the discriminant is in your notes, a chunk of algebra with a's, b's and c's in it, and you read off your value of a and b and c, okay, and you get a number when you put them in. You're going to do something squared minus 4 times something times something, and you're going to get a number, and you know that whether that is plus or 0 or negative tells you something about the solutions to the equation. Okay, and the number of solutions there are to that equation is the number of times the graph has an x-intercept. Okay, so by looking at the discriminant, you can see how many x-intercepts you should be able to find. Okay, so maybe a little bit of thinking to do, but certainly if you draw a graph with the correct way up, that way or that way, and the vertex in the correct place and with the correct y-intercept, and you get a correct value for the discriminant, and you decide what the discriminant means about solutions to the equation, you're not going to be far off getting all of these marks if you think that all through. So all the very best of luck with that question.